Good evening. Could you please tell us who you are and how you got started as an activist?
Yes, my name is Melissa Michelson and I'm an Alhambra resident. I am the founding organizer for Emery Park Community Group. We are right here on Fremont at Mission and Fremont in front of the Alhambra. And when I got started as an activist or as an engaged member of Alhambra, I guess it was a couple of years after I moved into Alhambra. I saw something on Facebook to go to City Hall, a request to get members of the community to go to Alhambra City Hall, and I'd never gone to City Hall before, so I wanted to go check it out.
All right, good. Now, you mentioned that we're here at the Alhambra. Is there a particular reason? I mean, what is it about the Alhambra? What's going on here?
The owner of this 33-acre property, most of it you could see, most of it is behind these brick buildings. The owner, Wayne Ratkovich, wants to build 790 luxury condos and apartments behind this area here. And the community should know that that's going to bring close to 5,000 cars daily on top of what's already here. Approximately 2,600 new residents would be living in the luxury units, and it's also on contaminated Superfund land. All of this area is Superfund contaminated land, and they haven't properly cleaned it up yet.
What in earth is it that is there? Is there an actual danger? Is there a study? Is there...
From about 100 years ago, in fact, it used to be used for aviation manufacturing. So there used to be a foundry, and all the factories were in here and right on behind this building as well. So so this is technically historically the office buildings from C.F. Braun, who did that in the 1920s.
And so I know that they have nice offices here. Are they going to tear those down?
Luckily, no, because this building is actually historically relevant. So they're not going to tear down the office space here, but behind this, that's where they have land where they want to build luxury units. We don't understand why they want to build here because it's all industrial. Behind this, it's the industrial area of Alhambra. There's nothing to walk to. There's really nothing to walk to around here other than this food court, which is right here. It's got Subway and Starbucks. There are no parks, although they are talking about building a green space. That green space would not be anywhere near the actual current residences and the residential areas. It's almost like a moot point. Even there, then it's questionable if whoever's living there will walk here because it's going to be kind of far away.
They have to walk past the offices.
Yeah, they'll probably walk through there.
I would think that was that would be a security issue. How many units? Because I think it was over 1,000 at one time.
Initially, the developers wanted to build 1,061 luxury units. The Planning Commission rejected that last year in November. The City Council is discussing the latest proposal, which is 790 units. Some apartments and some for sale units.
Going to be a parking structure?
Yes. There's going to also be 4,300 new parking spaces for these units.
So this is only for the people who would live there, not for the public, not for anybody else.
Yes.
So that's a lot of cars, which leads me to the second question. Isn't Fremont Street off Valley and the 710 and the 710 stub, all that, isn't that like the busiest thoroughfare in the San Gabriel Valley?
We're really concerned that this project is the wrong project for the wrong location. It's too large for this area, specifically because of Fremont Boulevard, which is usually extremely busy. Pre-COVID, it's always packed. If you go further south on Fremont, there's a lot of traffic south of Fremont going to the 10. also there's the 710, which is about a mile away as well. Everyone's coming off of the 710 freeway and then they want to get onto Fremont. This is the main thoroughfare for pretty much all the San Gabriel Valley. Anybody coming from the north that needs to go to the 710, this is the street that they would take. So no matter, if whether you live in Alhambra or you don't, what they do right here is going to affect you.
Okay. How much are these going to cost, and are these affordable to people who live in Alhambra?
Well, the average income of an Alhambran is around $60,000 a year, annual salary. And one of these units, because they're luxury units, a condo will likely sell for about $800,000 plus your HOA monthly fees. And an apartment, a luxury apartment here in this property will likely go for at least $2,600 a month. That's just by going off of the comps in the area.
Based on today, because things are going, 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms are going for $800,000.
Right.
And then this is going to take how long to get built?
Right. Those rates are based on the comps from a year and a half ago or so. There are some luxury units in downtown Alhambra that go for that. And then also 9 blocks from here, there are luxury units. The developers built 124 luxury condos just 9 blocks from here.
Is that where the trees got cut down to build?
Yes.
Tell us more about that.
Right. I was also involved in the fight to save 268 mature trees on 12 acres of land at Valley and Marengo. The city council at the time gave the green light to the developers to tear down all the trees, including a historic church, the historic chapel that was there, that was built by a famous architect from 1923. And so they saved the church. Actually, the community saved the church because we got involved. And so the church got saved, but the trees did not. The trees were in the way for those developers, and they raised every single one of them, or moved some across the street to the smaller ones, moved to across the street to the school. But the majority of them got bulldozed, and now it's a big brown pit of dirt. And that's where they're building these luxury condos, and they're still in the process. So recently Alhambra implemented an affordable housing ordinance, just like other neighboring cities have done. Actually, I'm not sure of the details, but for large developments, I believe over 100 units, they would need to provide or set aside a certain number of affordable housing units. They're not allowed to make the units different from the rest of the units. So the developers had applied to put in their 1,061 units. Not one single one would have been affordable to the average Alhambran, but they put that in before the ordinance became a law. So they don't have to abide by that, but some of the city council members have been trying to see if the developer would include the luxury for sale units to be under the affordable category, but they are refusing to do that. So in order to fit the 790 luxury units, they're going to be building in 5 stories. They're putting them into 5-story buildings. If you look at the plans from above, it almost looks like a prison from above. Large buildings that are going to be packed in together with no open space in between.
Not much walking, like maybe a sidewalk in between.
There will be streets, it's a walled community without a gate. So essentially it's a gated community in a large, in 33 acres in the middle of an industrial area with no contiguous relationship to the rest of the neighborhood, because there frankly isn't a neighborhood here.
Right.
The train tracks would run along the south end of the property. The north end of the property, there's Costco. And on the east end of the property, there's Home Depot and an electric plant. So this right here, where we are standing, where there's a subway, and some empty storefronts. This is the only shopping, and Kohl's. This is the only shopping that there is here for the whole area.
Now,
Yeah, one of the previous projects I got involved in, I started hearing about the plan to put a Lowe's right here on Fremont, right behind me in this big empty lot. It's about 12 acres of empty lot, and the community of Emery Park also pushed back hard on that because we didn't understand why there needed to be a Lowe's superstore right here on Fremont when 6 blocks away was a Home Depot. And at the time, those developers claimed that that was a lumber yard, that Lowe's was a lumber yard, and therefore falls under the industrial zoning. Now, for the Alhambra Villages project here, the developer got a special permission, I believe in 2004 or 2006, to get a spot zone change so that his property doesn't fall under the industrial zoning. So he could put mixed use and business and other. So the owners of this property is not just Wayne Ratkovich. Ratkovich has owned the Alhambra development, but on top of that is a wealth management company, I believe out of Hong Kong, called Elite International Investments, and they own the majority stake in this. Right. Investors see this as a way for their money to grow, a place to put their money and buy property. They're not going to be really involved in the community. They're going to be landlords. This is an investment property for them. So when Alhambra families are all packed into a single family home with multi-generations living together, they should not for a minute believe, unless they are wealthy, they're not going to be able to send their children to come live nearby in one of these condos or apartments because, like I said, an average median income for an Alhambran won't be able to afford to live here.
Right.
This is for affluent residents. Yeah. It's actually a compound. And there's going to be no relationship between that community across this train tracks and then Emery Park community, which is on this side. There's the name that they're using is a misnomer, just like what they did with the trees. Believe it or not, they after bulldozing the trees, they renamed that property Woodhaven. And with this development, they're naming it the Villages. And when you think about the Villages, you think of a post office, a movie theater, a park, a library. Nothing like that will be in here. There will be no shops, no cafes, because that's not legal. They can't do it. So the only cafe, there's going to be nothing for them to go to in the compound. The residents are going to get into their cars and drive elsewhere. I don't know what kind of green space they're talking about because developers call green space even just any kind of landscaping. So it could be just dirt with a couple of plants in it. That's what they consider green space. So I don't know what they're going to do. I'd like to see Alhambra get a historic preservation ordinance as soon as possible in general, because all of our historic gems are just disappearing to the hands of developers who want to bulldoze them and build something bigger. Any kind of sensitivity to the neighborhood or the existing heights of the neighborhood. So that's a big concern of mine. With Woodhaven, they promised to plant new trees, and so far they've only planted a couple of palm trees, just decorative, and those do not provide shade to these buildings, these 2 or 3 story buildings that are currently being built.
Any options?
The developers are claiming that there are transit options here, and they've been touting walkability. First of all, like I said, there's nothing to walk to. If someone wants to go to Costco, how does anyone walk to Costco? What would you buy at Costco that you could bring back without a car? Or if you're going to go bike riding, there are no bike lanes in Alhambra. I can't imagine them putting any kind of bike lane here on Fremont. This is a 2-lane freeway almost. And so dangerous. Sometimes I do ride my bike down Fremont, but I take my life at my own risk when I do that because it's illegal to also ride on the sidewalks. So what are we supposed to do?
Right.
So the area is not bikeable. The area is not walkable. And in terms of transit, the only option is the bus. And there is one bus stop right here. I'm looking at it. And it has the ACT shuttle, the Alhambra mini shuttle, which goes just to Alhambra, downtown Alhambra. There's not even a metro stop in downtown Alhambra that people can connect to. And then there's the metro bus. Now, I don't know about you, but I haven't taken the bus in years because it's unreliable, it's slow, and it doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't go where I need it to go. So I doubt that the affluent people living here that are able to afford multiple cars and park their multiple cars in the 4,000 parking units, parking spots on the site, are going to take the bus. When they have friends come visit them, they have extra parking for their friends. So nobody is going to be taking the bus. They're going to get back in their cars and go where they need to go. The closest metro is South Pasadena, and this bus doesn't even service that metro. So there's no transferring there. This development has been on the books for years. At least 3 years. I remember several years ago, the community came here and the developers showed the fancy images of what it will look like. So it's then went to the Planning Commission. That was from July of 2020 until November of 2020. And in fact, the Emery Park Community Group started protesting right here on Fremont. And every time we held signs and let the commuters know that they were going to build 1,000 units behind these buildings here, everybody driving by said, hell no. They really didn't want that. But the problem is, people are not aware. Alhambra doesn't have a local press. People have stopped, stopped reading the newspaper, stopped, subscribing. They don't subscribe to online newspapers. So it's hard to get information out there for the community to know. So it's almost like we have to go old school and word of mouth and being on the street and informing each. This project has been so controversial. The Pasadena Star News has been covering this. So ColoradoBoulevard.net is also covering it. It's an online on-the-ground newspaper. This project has been in the works for at least 3 years. The Emery Park Community Group has been involved. So then it went to the City Council in January of 2021, this year. And since then, the City Council has been listening to the developers, listening to the public. The public has put in at least 300 or 400 comments, most of them opposing this development. I remember initially the City Council meetings were 3 hours long of just public comments. So this is an extremely controversial project, and the community is really against it. The development went before the City Council in January of this year, and after many iterations and a subcommittee of the City Council negotiating with the developers and changing this project to make it the most beneficial, but it's still not there. It's finally coming to the development agreement, which the City Council will be voting on. So if the community, if Alhambrans and, well, basically everybody, if the community, and that means the greater community, not just Alhambrans, but anyone in the public, can and should send a letter to the Alhambra City Council, they can just send a quick email and just tell them you don't want this development the way that it's written up. You just don't want it, and you want them to vote no. The City Council is listening, and now the new City Council members, some of them actually seem to care. So if we don't make our voices be heard, then what's
They
the
don't know what to do.
point?
Yeah.
You know, then they're going to do whatever they're going to do. And that's why Alhambra has seen the negative changes, in my opinion, over the years, because the community just isn't very involved or hasn't been very involved. And so they let the people that they've elected let them down. So we need to hold our city council people accountable.
Right. As you mentioned, even though there are some newspapers that circulate in the area, the city doesn't advertise in them, so they can't afford to cover our city. Or,
So during the pandemic, City Hall has closed down to the public. So the public was no longer able to go to these meetings, which in a way is good because then we started to participate at home on Zoom. So on the one hand, that's good because we could watch the meetings and we can voice our, we'll be unmuted and we can say something during the meeting. But the problem with that is they don't get to see the community and they don't necessarily have to be paying attention. Sometimes I see our city council people looking down and texting and whatnot. I don't know what they're doing. So I prefer that we can go to City Hall. So as soon as City Hall opens, we should all start attending meetings. So the way that people can participate is they could either log on Zoom or they can send in an email. And their email will be read out loud to the city council and to all the other members of the community listening. And sometimes the press is also listening too. That's really important to do because it becomes part of the record. You know, historically, people in the future can look back and see what did the community really want and how did that compare to what the city council people actually did.
things start over, doesn't it?
I believe if the city council votes no, then this development is dead. Then they need to come up with a new development and propose that and go through the same process as they started. One of the iterations that was in the documentation was 161 total units would not give any kind of significant traffic impact or environmental impact. So that's an option that the developers could do. Or they can build something else there that's more friendly for the community. If the city council votes yes, then the developer will take about 10 to 12 years to construct these units. We can expect more traffic. After the city council votes, so it's now or never for people to voice their concerns. And the letter or email they can just send in can be as simple as, vote down this development. I live in Alhambra. I'm opposed to this. I'll vote you out next time. I don't know, whatever they want to say, but it doesn't have to be very complicated. It's going to affect the future generations of Alhambrans to come. And I know of people that are saying if they build this thing, they're going to be leaving Alhambra and moving out, which is understandable. I mean, the traffic is already terrible, and this isn't really providing much needed housing to Alhambra. What people need is affordable housing and places to live that they could actually pay for and not go into debt just to live. It's now or never with this development. The developer has been pushing hard to get this rubber stamped, green lighted for a long time. So yeah, all eyes are on the city council right now. Three of them are up for elections coming soon. So it's unfortunate that they have to make mistakes and then we vote them out and then we vote new ones in, and it's like a cycle. And that cycle is going to continue until and unless the community of Alhambra get involved. Listen to the meetings, come to City Hall, write in the email, and let your elected official know what you want. Most of them are accessible and they can give you their phone numbers. They're on Facebook, they have an email, they have a general email that you can send to, and just when you see them, when you go to a city event, go up to them and ask them, why did you vote yes on the villages? Or what are you going to do with the villages? Just tell them your story. And if the more of us do that, the more they might listen and not just listen to the developer who has the most money.
Okay, well, thank you so much.
But this is it. I mean, if you don't say anything now, you have no right to complain later. That's what I would tell them.